My main goal for this Comanche build is and will always be to build the highest quality rig I possibly can. But not only that, it has to make sense, it has to flow. Everything needs to work together seamlessly when I'm out on the trail. That being said, there are so many different directions you can go in a build like this. One thing you should absolutely do is invest in good quality parts. I like having the peace of mind that I spent my money on something that will last. For example, these American-made Battleborn wheels are the perfect entry-level beadlock for those that are on a budget and looking for reliability. Not only will they hold up to the stress of rock crawling, they will look good in the process. I want this rock crawler to be simple and easy to work on, which leads us into today's project, which is rebuilding the old trusty 4.0. In the last video, I tore down this 4.0 because I had a bad knock and I needed to figure out what I was going to do about it. I also did a few modifications to the Comanche, so if you missed that video, I put a link down in the description so you can go watch that one right after this one.
So from my experience, there isn't an easier engine to work on than the Jeep 4.0. But the one thing that the 4.0 is lacking is being unique, and every aspect of my Comanche is gonna be unique. I want it to be something that pushed me to the limits of what I'm capable of building. So I have decided to build a Jeep 4.6 liter stroker. Not only am I gonna take you along for the journey of this rebuild, but I'm gonna break down how much it cost me in 2025 to build a Jeep 4.6 liter stroker. They aren't a sponsor of the channel, but huge shout out to Clegg Engines and their in-house machine shop. They are the ones that helped me spec out this stroker kit, and they did all the machine work in-house. So if you're planning to do a stroker engine for your Jeep, I recommend giving them a call. They can guide you along the way and tell you everything that you need to know and what parts you're gonna need. So for this engine rebuild, I decided to go the route of using all brand new parts. I do know it is possible to build a 4.6 stroker from used parts, like getting a crank and rods from a 4.2 liter Jeep engine. But in this case, Clegg Engines makes it so easy to just go to their website, buy a complete kit, customize it how you want it, and have it all shipped right to you. So I went that route. Plus, you can't beat brand new parts. One upgrade that I decided to do on this engine build is upgrade to a NSR Stage 1 cam. This cam setup is super mild and it actually allows you to use the factory tune, but it is always a good idea to tune the engine after a build of this caliber to ensure that you have optimized air-fuel ratios. Keep in mind, if you do go the route of using a used 4.2 liter crankshaft, you could run into bearing clearance issues. So having a machine shop check everything over and tell you what crank and rod bearings you should use is very important to making sure your assembly goes flawlessly. As you can see, my clearances are perfectly in spec with my brand new crank and standard bearings. This will ensure that this engine will always have great oil pressure. As always, remember to protect your investment and use a high quality engine assembly lube, and don't forget to torque everything down to spec. So this is Clegg Engines Stage 2 4.6 stroker kit. It comes with beautiful 9.3:1 KB dish pistons, and I opted for the full floating forged scat rods, Hastings Molly piston rings, and Clevet bearings. Assembly of the pistons and rods is super straightforward. Just make sure you double check that you installed the rods and piston rings in the correct orientations. Take your time, you're not in any race here. Make sure you do this right the first time to avoid major issues down the line. If you're like me and you like to do extensive research before starting a project like this, then be sure to hit that like button so this video can spread to more people like you and me here on YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Now that I've finished up installing the crank and pistons, it's time to install the rest of the bottom end components, starting with the crank girdle. The crank girdle was introduced in 1996 to strengthen the bottom end, and in order to install this crank girdle with a stroker kit, you need some spacers to raise it up just a little bit so the connecting rods do not come in contact with it. Next, I installed a brand new stock Mellings oil pump gasket, and pickup tube. And of course, torqued it to spec. If you're a member of some of the Jeep Facebook groups like I am, then you know that 4.0 timing chain posts can be a pretty triggering topic for some people. The way I look at it is if you're there and if you're concerned about it, then replace it. Also, don't forget to inspect the timing chain guide. The one on this engine was broken and needed to be replaced. The next step is to install all of the top end components, starting with the lifters. Don't be the guy that forgets to install the lifters. I installed all new Mellings lifters. All they need is a light coating of oil before you install them. I'm sure one of you is wondering what cylinder head I'm using. This is the 0331 head that was originally on this 2000 4.0. I know one of you is really going to be concerned since the word on the street is that they are prone to cracking between cylinders 3 and 4. I talked to Clegg's Machine Shop and they assured me that they don't see many cracked ones and that with proper engine maintenance, I won't have any issues. So I had them go through it and rebuild anything that was needed, and I went ahead and installed it on the engine. The last step on the top end was to install all new push rods and the original rocker arms from the 2000 XJ. Now that I have a freshly assembled 4.6 liter stroker long block, it's time to move on to what I'm calling my least favorite part of this build, which is cleaning 25 years of rust and old paint off this engine block. But good thing a company called POR15 exists. Their products are amazing. They sell rust preventative kits and engine enamels. They are super durable and long lasting. I even think they advertise them as permanent. Anyways, back in 2019, I used their coatings on the 4.0 that I built for my white Cherokee, and 50,000 miles later, it is still holding strong and looks great. One thing I did do was I picked a color other than black for this engine. Black is definitely the go-to for most people, but I want this 4.6 liter stroker to stand out. A little foreshadowing here, but man, the color combo that I picked out for this engine just flows so perfectly. Nobody likes watching paint dry, so let's move on to the final assembly. The rest of the parts to finish this build consist of old refurbished parts from the 2000 XJ mixed with some new ones. My goal from the very beginning was to have a show car quality final product. I know some of you might be thinking this is way too nice for a rock crawler. For those of you that are thinking that, you might be right, but whatever, it is what it is. I absolutely cannot wait to get this thing out in the rocks and beat on it. I have a question. What is your secret formula to keeping your 4.0 cool? I've been running the Flow Cooler water pump with their high flow 180 degree thermostat on my Cherokee for a while now. Those combined with an all aluminum radiator seem to be one of the best combos to keeping the 4.0 cool on hot summer days. Next up, I installed everyone's favorite oil filter adapter and installed a brand new Mopar oil filter. Don't forget to He-Man the oil filter on so tight that you can never remove it again. Just kidding, don't be that guy. This is the part of the build where all of the hard work and planning that I've put into it is starting to pay off. This thing is looking awesome. I can't wait to show you. But before we get to that big reveal, let's install the last few components, starting with the oil pan and the oil dipstick.
Now that the oil pan and oil dipstick are installed, it's time to add some Maxima 10W30 break-in oil so that I can prime the brand new Mellings oil pump. Be sure not to skip this part on any engine rebuild. On a Jeep 4.0, all you need is a modified flathead screwdriver and a drill to spin the oil pump. A little tech tip during this part is the oil pump spins clockwise when you're looking down on it. Now that the oil system is primed, I verified that the engine is at top dead center, and I installed the cam sync with a drill bit holding it in the top dead center position. Now that the cam sync is installed, I can move on to the final component that needs to be installed, which is the cylinder head cover. Alright, so the engine is fully assembled. I can't wait to show you. So let's not waste any time. Here is my Jeep 4.6 liter stroker. All right, so what do you think? This thing turned out amazing. It is exactly like I planned, and the contrasting colors between the bluish green, the black, the silver, the zinc yellow chromate bolts, everything just flows together so nicely. I really couldn't be happier with how this turned out. And honestly, it is too good of looking of an engine to go in my Comanche. This thing is a turd. It needs a lot of work before it is up to the same standards that I put into this engine. All right, so I'm gonna break down how much it cost me in 2025 to build a 4.6 liter stroker. There are a few parts that I'm not going to add in the grand total, and those are things that I feel like were just extra add-ons that I didn't purchase from Clegg's Engines or Clegg's Machine Shop, and those are things like the paint, the flow cooler water pump, flow cooler thermostat, new harmonic balancer, new oil pan. Those are things that I feel were just extra stuff that I wanted to do that aren't necessarily required for a 4.6 stroker. So I broke down the cost into two categories. The first one being machine work, the second one being parts. So let's not waste any time, let's get into it. First up, the machine work, starting with the engine block. So the engine block got a few different things done to it. It got cleaned, bored, resurfaced, and prepped. All of those items cost $513. The cylinder head, because this is the 0331 cylinder head that is prone to crack between cylinders 3 and 4, I had them really go through it and make sure everything is fine. Obviously, it didn't have any cracks. As you see here, it's installed on the engine, but they did find a few things that needed to be addressed, starting with the valves. I had them do a valve job, which cost $275. I had them install new valve guides, which cost $150. They found that it needed new exhaust valve seats, which cost $90. And they resurfaced the cylinder head, which cost another $90. So all of the cylinder head work cost a grand total of $605. Then there were a couple other extra things that needed to happen as far as machine work goes, and I had them file the new rings for those KB pistons, and I took them a bunch of covers, all of the aluminum covers, the valve cover, the crank girdle, and had them media blast what they could and clean up everything, so when I put everything together, it was nice and clean, and that cost me $65. So all of the machine work cost a grand total of $1,233. Now, moving on to the parts.
The parts is where it gets expensive when you're building a 4.6 liter stroker. There are cheaper ways you could go about it by using used parts, and I really didn't have the time or the knowledge to figure out what I needed. So I decided that I would just buy new parts, which I'm glad I did. It's nice to have new stuff and know that there aren't any hidden issues with those parts. So starting with the parts list here, the stroker kit for this engine cost $1,495. I did opt for a stage 1 performance cam, so that cam kit cost $460. Then I got a gasket set, which was $87, cam bearings $32, a new oil pump $72. Then I needed new valve guides, obviously, because of the machine work, which was $48 in parts. New valve seats for the exhaust side, which was $36 in parts. And then I bought some Maxima break-in engine oil, so I knew everything was going to be protected on that first startup, which cost me $50. So all of the parts together cost $2,280, which honestly, yeah, it's expensive, but for what I'm getting and the value that I'll get out of this engine and the longevity of having those new parts, I think it was well worth it. I'm not going to have to come back in here and fix anything. So with tax and some shop fees that they had at Clegg's Engines, the total for all of everything that I spent there was $3,816.21. So if you go buy a pre-built stroker engine, you will spend about that much money. So pretty much you're saving some money in that aspect because you're not paying for labor at the machine shop. It's just an already pre-built engine that they're selling for $3,800 or whatever the price is. So I feel like what I did was pretty competitively priced for getting a 4.6 liter stroker. All right, that's gonna wrap it up for this one. Thank you so much for coming by and checking out what I have going on. I am so grateful for all of your guys' support, and it is always my primary goal to bring you guys as much information as possible. So if there's something I didn't cover in this video that you would like to find the answer to, comment down below and I'll try and help you the best that I can. Anyways, get out there in your garages, work on your projects, get out there on the trails and explore, and don't forget to stay safe out there. I'll catch you next time.